Well, hello and good evening. Welcome to the Building SaaS with Python and Django stream. I'm Matt Lehman. I'm going to be the streamer you're watching this evening. And we've got some fun stuff planned. So since my stream's still new, I'll give you a background about who I am for anyone who's watching and is new to the stream. I am a software engineer. I am a Python developer, and I've been doing Python for 10 plus years. So I know a thing or two about Python, and I know a thing or two about Django. I'm using it professionally at my job for many years now, and I've got a lot of it figured out. I'm not perfect at it, of course, so this is just one person's take on how to work with Django, but I've at least got the core things down. Tonight we're going to be looking at updating some Django templates and updating some data that I used in a previous stream but never quite finished off the work, so we're going to finish it off tonight. You'll see in this how Django gets its data to templates, and templates, just for context, are the things that you see on the web page. Django takes that information that's built in your design and combines it with some data and puts it on your screen. So if you're totally new to Django, that's kind of what we'll be looking at. I'm not going to go over all of the guts of how Django works, but I'm happy to answer questions as they may arise. So I'm just going to leave a note here just to remind people as they might come in. If you have questions, speak up or let me know, and I'll try to answer them. And that goes for any of these streams. Like the point of this stream is twofold. I am using this to make progress on my side project. It's a consistent way that I can, at least if I'm not spending any other time on it, I can spend this time of streaming to make some headway on some aspect of the product. But the bigger thing that I want to do is to be able to have a resource that people can see that is of an application that is more than just a tutorial, is built out and has some guts to it. So you can see how a web application lives in the real world, because this is a site that is on out there for real. So I encourage you to join with me and be part of the chat and ask your questions, and we'll just have some fun together to go through that. Also, if you happen to enjoy this material, share it on social media. Let people know that it's out there and available, or just leave me a comment on Twitter. I'd love to hear from people who found this useful and find out ways that I can make it better. I'm sure that this is a new thing and it's a work in progress. So hopefully this will become something useful as people discover it and as I continue to add value. So what are we looking at? The software as a service that I'm making is for a website that's called College Conductor. College Conductor, the 30-second elevator pitch is that it's for college admissions counselors to help students manage the deadlines associated with college applications. And the specifics of the domain are not super important to what we show in this stream, but periodically I will use terminology that is related to the problem I'm trying to solve. That's sort of unavoidable, and I think if you watch streams, either as I post them on YouTube or live right now, you'll get to learn bits and pieces of it along the way. And it's a fairly simple application in what it's scoped to do currently. So it's more than a tutorial, but not a well-established, long-running business that has such a complex domain that it's almost not understandable. Okay, so that's sort of the preliminary of what the stream is about. Let's get into what we're going to be looking at today. So I'm going to jump over here to start off with, and we're looking at GitHub. Everything for this service, College Conductor, is hosted on GitHub, and it's all available for your perusal. I'm not hiding anything. Well, the only stuff I'm hiding is hidden in plain sight in an encrypted file that you won't be able to read, and that's just like secrets data that is not for public consumption anyway, like account credentials to Stripe and that sort of thing. But everything else is free for your perusal, free for you to review, to take ideas out of, to ask me questions about. It's all out here, and the code is available. Tonight we're going to be looking at this particular issue. I use the GitHub issues system to keep track of the high chunks of work that I want to do. I don't use, since I'm one person managing the software as a service, I don't use a lot of other stuff to add on to it. I found that GitHub can be sufficient for running at least the core of a business. But we're going to focus on this particular issue around subscriptions. So in one of my earlier streams, what I did was change from a hard-coded set of values to an actual configurable data model. And the data model is something that points to subscriptions that I have in Stripe, which is the payment gateway that I use. And it allows me to present different options to different users. And for future, if I make changes to the service, I'll be able to put them out there in a very easy way that won't have me going into mucking with the code and modifying a bunch of places every time that happens. Unfortunately, the way I started with was hard coding that. So what I'm doing right now is coming back through and taking all of those places where that data was hard coded and cleaning that up and making it to use this data, and that's what we'll see tonight. So I think that's the basic idea of the stream for this evening, and we'll get started. The issue comes down to a few things. So the data model is already created. I called it a product plan. And the reason I call it a plan was that's just sort of terminology that you're signing up for a plan. This is the College Conductor's model for making money, is a subscription-based service, and the plans are they pretty closely align with what Stripe has available. And so I didn't want to go to anything too complex, so I just named it that. And so we already have that to work with, and we're going to fix this up to make it use this plan data. So let's look at some code. The first place to start with, actually, before we even look at code, let's look at where we're starting from. So this is the live site, and the first place that the product plan is used is right here in this button for a free trial. This number right here, 14, is data that I want to come from the plan, because plans in Stripe are configurable to set different trial periods. And if I ever switch the trial in the future, which I do intend to ultimately move to a 30-day trial, for example, this will be something that will change very quickly in that way. So there's a button at the top, button at the bottom. They're basically the same button, same code, but we need to make sure that they use the data. So now I think we can look at some code. When I did this last time, I figured I made a bad decision, and I said it in the stream, and I kind of rationalized at the time, but in hindsight, now that I've had a couple weeks to think on it, I realize it was a poor decision, and we'll talk specifically about it. So what this index does is this is the entire set of code that is required to run in order to generate this page. Now that seems like sort of far-fetched, but we can break it down and look at this. There are a couple of things that Django does when showing a page. This particular function, this def index function, is connected to a set of URLs. So Django works by having a map of here are the URLs on my website, and here is the code that runs them. So you can see right at the top here, you don't have to know too much Django to make sense of this, but the first part of this stuff is the path. This empty path means that we're at the root of our domain, which I am calling index, just kind of conventionally. You have to give everything a name, and so that's where this thing is wired to. So every time you go to collegeconductor.com and you don't go to any particular page like the sign up or login page or wherever else, you're going to hit that path that has nothing in it, and it's going to come into this index view. And the index view is going to pull some data from the database, which is this step that's happening right here. and put it into a dictionary of context. That context is then passed along to a particular template, which is named index.html, and the context and the template are merged together and help to produce the result that you see on the screen. It's the data that is actually transmitted to the browser and displayed. Okay, so we have our product plan here already, and I've already done the work on this template, which we can look at to show how that product plan is used. So let's do that right now. We're going to go over to the template, the index template, and find the product plan. And I have making this particular page, it's mobile responsive, so that's why you actually see this listed twice. So I had to do different styling to make a mobile version and a version that is for larger screens. It had to do with some of the white space that was around the button and stuff like that, but it lists it twice, which is why you might be a little confused about it. But you can see that what this does is looks mostly like HTML. Hopefully you're familiar with some HTML, but these are the tags that a browser understands how to display things, and they're connected with different cascading style sheets to do the styling, which is what all of this stuff is in these class attributes. But here is the relevant bit that we care about, this section right here that I'm highlighting. This is the template markup syntax to say I want to pull from that context dictionary and I want to pull some data out of it and display it here in place of this whole thing. So this right here, product plan.trial days, translates to 14 for that particular product plan that was used. Okay, so I don't think there's anything left to do on this index page from the template point of view, and there's another one at the bottom down here. So that's already done. All three spots that this thing uses already have the right thing, so that should be fine. What we really needs to happen though is we need to fix this. When I first declared that I was going to do it this way, I didn't realize all of the implications to this. And what is even the problem is maybe the first question that we should get into. When you do an ORM, an object relational mapper call, this is querying into the database using the objects manager. So it's the tools that Django gives you to actually get data from a database. But when you say get, that's one of the methods that we're using here. You're asking for a specific instance, a specific record from the database. And the stuff that we're passing into this as the parameters are the filters that you want to apply to get the specific record. If you know SQL, it's the where clause of the SQL. The challenge with this is that if it matches more than one record, this will fail. And it will raise an exception in Python that says multiple objects found, because it can't disambiguate between one record and the other. And that's kind of a problem, because if you look at the filter, I've said whatever is active is true. And the problem with this strategy is that in the time from setting a new product plan, if I ever chose to change it in the future, I would have to make it in a way so that I basically flip the active state of two records at the same time. It's possible using what's known as a atomic transaction to make two of these kind of updates, but I really don't want to have to write that kind of code to make that work, because it's unnecessary work. So what I really want to do is say, get me the active product plan, the first one that you can find. And that should be good enough, because in the background, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to say, this is my active plan, and this is going to be my new active plan. And I'm going to do some work administratively to turn plans on and off with the tools that I have. So what we really, it should be sufficient to say what's the first one, because in 99% of the cases or more, it will be just one plan. I'll only have one thing active. But in that very small window of time where I'm actually changing things, I don't want the main page of my website to break, because if I go with this route, if I add a new plan, there will be a small window of time where if you go to College Conductor, it will break, it will raise an exception, and Django won't know how to handle it, and it'll give up, and I'll show an error page to the user, which is not what we want to happen. So we're going to change this. And we're going to change it from a test-driven view. So we're going to come over to the accounts test views. And you'll see here that I have a product plan. And actually, I think the easiest way to demonstrate that this will break is by creating a second product plan using this tooling, this test tooling that I have, and running the test again. And just doing that much should cause the exact problem that I wanted to illustrate. So as I said, if the database can't figure out what individual record it needs to show, it gives up. It says, because rather than giving a user an undetermined experience, it just wants you as the programmer to decide which record did you really mean. So what I want to be able to do is say, give me one of these. So we're going to change it to look like this. We're going to change it to be a filter rather than a get. Get is very specific, it says give me this one thing. Filter, on the other hand, says give me all of the things that look like this. And as it's written now, this doesn't make sense, because it's not going to return one thing. It really would return something more like that, product plans. But I don't want to get multiple plans, I just want to get one plan. So we're going to say, give me the first plan, and I'm trying to think if that's really what I want. We'll get to that in a second. So we'll try it with this, see if it makes the test pass. And it did. So the first method here says, what you're getting back from this filter call is something referred to as a query set. Query set, as the set name implies, is that it's a collection, a group of records. And it's saying from that set of things that are in the database, give me the first of them. And first is defined by the ordering from the query. And I believe the ordering is based on the ID by default, but let's not guess on that. Let's actually go to the Django documentation and read the docs, because that's what you have to do quite a bit of time as a programmer. You have to read things, and it comes with the territory. So if you're a new programmer and you don't like reading, well, get used to it or find another profession, because it's unavoidable. So what we want to find is the Django query set documentation. And Django has some excellent documentation, so this should be a pretty good resource for you if you're coming at this fresh. And specifically, we want to find, so query set, we're looking for, oh boy, here we go. So let's come down here. So I might switch from first or latest to something else. We'll take a read here for a second. And I'm just going to take a second to read this to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting the functions, and we'll talk about it in a second. So read along with me, I guess, if you're following along the stream. Okay, it is what I expected. So let's look right here. If the query set has no ordering defined, so in a model, there's a way to define an ordering. So that means that every time you query the database, if you have an ordering set, you can say, give it to me in this way. Let's make that a little bit more concrete. So let's say you have a model that every time you change the model, you update a modified time on it. And for some reason, whatever you're doing with that model, you want to get the list of things by when they were last modified. So maybe you say your ordering is by the modified date. That is what it will do in the SQL, the SQL under the covers, is add an order by clause, and it will use that modified date column as the thing to go by. So what I want to do is not that. I want to rely on this more default behavior, which is say the order is automatically set by the primary key. The primary key is just a counter that gets added to by default to a model. You can also set your own, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But the default scenario is just a number that increments. So every time you add a new record, it starts at 1 and it increments like that. So what I'm really most interested in is if I have a couple of active models and I'm going through this modification, the one that is the one I created later is going to have a larger primary key number, right? Because naturally, if I make a plan first, it's going to be given 1. And if I make a second plan, it's going to be given 2. So the ordering that I have by the primary key is fine for my purposes. I really want to say, give me the latest version of the plan. So I don't want first. Really, what I want is last. And so I'm going to switch this to be more representative of the scenario that I'm trying to protect against. So I want this to be the product plan that is shown. And I hope that makes sense. Right now, this test will fail because I told it first. And it doesn't match. It says, product plan object 2, with primary key 2 does not match product plan with primary key 1, which is exactly what I would expect. So coming down here, we're going to change this to last. That should be sufficient to make the test pass. And it gives me the satisfaction and the additional knowledge that I can't break my index page by updating the product plan anymore. Okay, so let's go back to our GitHub issue and take a look at this here. We want to add a product plan to the index page. It was already added to the template. That's done. And we just modified the view logic. That's the function that Django runs. It's called a view. And we updated that logic so that it will do that in a nice, robust way. I'm going to come over here and we're going to look. So I've got 2 files that we updated. Really simple change in the end after all that discussion. And we're going to add it to Git for now. So this information is staged in Git. So I have not committed it yet because I kind of want to commit all of this work as one chunk, but it gives me a good checkpoint to say, like, I'm happy with the code that's there, and whatever I do with the rest of my branch at this point, I'm not going to mess that part up. Okay. So let's look at the next thing that we want to update. Add product plan to the school page. This is going to take a bit of explanation. So I had an idea some time ago on College Conductor to take all of the schools that I collect information about and expose that information as public data so that you can go to College Conductor /schools / the school slug, like University of Virginia, where I went to school. And the idea is give some basic school profile information. In fact, I think I can even show off one of these. So let's go to schools, University of Virginia. Good example. So here we are. And the goal of this was twofold. I was trying to get some SEO mojo, search engine optimization, for those not familiar with SaaS. And make College Conductor appear higher in search results by offering some amount of information in a public set of schools so that anybody searching for a particular school about admissions deadlines might stumble across this information and get some value out of it, but really be left with like a teaser of you want to learn more, come learn more by signing up. So what's the problem? Well, here's the problem. It's 14. That 14, if you can guess it, is a hard-coded 14 value. So what I need to do is replace this with the product plan like I did in the other instances. I need to make a call here about what to do, because there are two ways that I could do this. I could take the button that I used on the main page, this one right here, and I can recycle that here. Like you notice, might even notice the difference right off the bat. Like one of them has a little arrow in it, and the other one does not, because they're different chunks of template. So that's one path that I can take. I can the term would be a refactoring. I'm pulling out the code. I'm not making any changes to the content of this code, but I'm trying to make a reusable chunk of template that can be used both here and here. That would have some advantages. I don't know that it's worth it because they might be slightly different. It's going great. I guess you can hear me, so sorry, this is an unusual form of conversation that I'm not quite used to yet. So Anthony, if you have any questions for me, let me know. So getting back to this button, trying to decide what to do with it. I think what I'm going to do for now is just update the button that's here. And because why? Because this button is not going to have a lot of reuse outside of this one place that it's used, and this over here. They're very specific. So let's do that. Let's go to the template that we care about. And where is that template? Aha. Let's see. So see if how well I can remember this stuff. I think I put it here, but we're going to find out. There it is. Great. So this template, this underscore school template, is actually used by a couple of things. It's used by this unauthenticated view. I am using a framework. This is a Bootstrap is the framework that I'm using. So it just, if you're familiar with Bootstrap, it just gives you the a standard set of kind of widgets that you can use. I did for some of this stuff, like this page right here, I actually took a theme that was available somewhere on the internet for free and modified it heavily to suit my purposes. So I started with a basic theme and then really fleshed it out with what I thought made it look relevant. But coming back over here, we're using this school template in a couple of places. It gets used for an authenticated view, which is the teaser kind of view that's right here. But it also gets used for the view that when you're an authenticated user, you want the rest of the information. You want all the deadlines. Oh, pre-commit. Okay, great. And you want all of that stuff. So let's jump back over here and let's modify the template that's here. I think what I'm going to do is go to that number, nope, not 15, 14, and go ahead and fill it in with the data. It's going to be the same thing as what was there before. That what was on the index page, I should say. So we need to hook up the context of this view and to make this work in the same fashion. Because if I come to this view without the data, it's going to just say start your free day trial, which is not not the goal that we want to see. And actually, we could probably just go ahead and prove that. So I'm using a system called Honcho to actually do the execution of my local environment. I'm not running this in a virtual machine. I just have a virtual environment that has all of the stuff that's local to my Mac. It's not quite as accurate as a virtual machine would be, but it is pretty fast. So we want to go to the website, and that's the local host, I believe. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so now we get the cool Django debug toolbar, all the stuff that we care about. And we can see this in context of the failure that I expect. We're going to bring up the University of Virginia. This is also noticeably slower because I'm using some local certificates, and the TLS certificate and Firefox, they don't play nicely, so sometimes it takes a few seconds to load, but that's why there's some delay. But here's the broken button. That's what I'm trying to illustrate here. Start your free trial, free day trial. I could probably be smart about that if it was broken and exclude day and then start your free trial. That would make sense, but I'd rather just fix it so that it's always right. So I've got this view defined in a different views file, and it is here. Got it's the school detail view. So what we need to do is the same thing that we had in the index view. So what I think I'm going to do is have them kind of side by side, and I am going to copy paste some code because what's a little copy pasting never hurt anybody, right? And put it right here. And so this is the data that's going to go into the context. Actually, maybe I'll move it down to be closer to the context. So I've got this separated. I'm looking at this now. I'm not sure I'm crazy about it. Maybe the way I laid this out the first time was to have the template first and then the context, so that when you got to the rendered method, it would say request and then whatever the template's going to be in the context. I'm wondering how much that makes sense, because now I have the schools up here, context is down here. I don't know, it just sort of feels sort of messy. But the reason I have the school up here is because I'm doing this get object or 404. And that get object or 404 does what it sounds like. We talked earlier about by having this thing do a get, if it didn't find the record, it would, or found too many records, it would report back, I found too many. This over here is kind of a shortcut that says, well, do the same sort of get query on the model, but if you don't find that model, like if somebody goes into my site and types in some junk for the slug, which is this part right here, University-of Virginia, that's considered the slug of the URL, it will just 404 say like, I can't find that, which is exactly what you would expect it to do because it's a school that doesn't exist in the database. So we want the context to effectively look like this in the end, and I'm just kind of showing it. I might back it, actually even reverse it in a second to do this in a test-driven way, but I wanted to kind of jump to the conclusion so that you can see it, and then we'll do a test to make sure that it's correct, because I want to have the kind of guarantees that my data matches my templates, because that's one thing that's actually kind of hard to do in Django. There are probably ways to do it with heavier test integration kind of tests that are actually like rendering your entire template. But my model of doing development is I want a very fast test suite. Like if I run my whole suite, the thing runs in, I've got some broken tests that's expected here, but it runs, look at the time there, about 1 second. So that's running the entire thing. You got auto modded. I don't know what that means yet. I'm still new to Twitch. So where was I? Oh, so we're going to write the test to ignore the template, the actual rendered output, and just focus on what's in the context. and knowing that I am writing the code now for both, and so I know that at today's date, November 28th, I was satisfied that the template that I'm using for this view has that data. Okay, so getting back to this, why did I kind of poo-poo on this? Why did I not like the look of this? I don't like the look of this because the natural thing that I want to happen is I want the data that's going to go into the context to be grouped together. And maybe this feels a little better. Yeah, I think I feel a little better than that, because I guess the order between template and context does not need to match up with render. That was just my sensibilities at the time. So I think this is what I ultimately want the thing to look like. So let's work with that. Before we can make this work, you can see that my editor is complaining I have an undefined name product plan showing up in the bottom corner there. That's coming from Flake 8. So I haven't imported the model. So the product plan model is coming from the conductor accounts app, and it exists in the models module. So this would make that error go away by importing that plan. So I'm going to actually step back into the test. TDD purists would kind of rip on me right now because I'm doing this in a way that is not pure TDD, because I'm putting the actual like solution in there first, but they can just deal. So let's look at the test views file for this thing, and we have this school detail. And so I've got some tests in here that I've got the bad school, I've got an unauthenticated test, and so on. I've got the different templates that it's checking. So really, I think what I want to do, what Vim plugin are you using for the Django template? Oh, good question. I don't think I'm using a specific template. I think I'm using the Jinja 2. Let's see what how do I tell it what the file type is? Yeah, okay, maybe I do. HTML Django. I'm not sure where that came from. Now here's a problem. When you've been doing Vim so long that you can't remember your plugins. HTML Django. Where did that come from, guys? I don't know. Doesn't look like one of my installed plugins. That's a great question. Yeah, it is. It's nice to have a template that is kind of context aware of your template language and get all the highlighting that is sensible. And I think whatever I did, because now this is ringing a bell. Like I think I installed some plugin to do that kind of template stuff, but I'll have to look it up. I'll let you know if I can find it online and drop it in either the YouTube notes or on Twitter or somewhere like that. Okay, so what I really want to do now is check on the context here. So I don't really want to make a test for each little bit of context. I think that's a little bit overkill. So we're going to change this test to be not checking for if the school is in the context, but just the context in general. So I don't know about that. I might poke you offline to figure out what, because I'm pretty much using the straight up OBS settings. And if there's ways to make this faster or more readable for someone on slower connections, I'm more than happy to do that. So let's look at the context. And I think what I need is a product plan here that's product plan factory, set it to create, and put that like this. And then I want to take this guy and say that it's going to have a product plan at the context. The bad part of this is that this test will pass, and I never saw it fail. So I guess what I can do is just say, maybe let's just change this for now to false so that we can at least see a failure. Okay, it didn't find anything. So I've got a little bit of extra confidence that the test is doing what I think it does. It's good to make sure your test is not just passing just because of circumstance. So now the data is in there, and this is the same chunk of code as the other area. I'm looking at this now, and I'm wondering, this might be a case where maybe it makes sense to have a method on the manager to say latest active plan, kind of like a just a get kind of method or a property method. But I'm going to stick with a straight up filter. I don't think this is going to affect a lot of places in the code, so I'm kind of happy enough with doing this more direct query. So coming back over to our local host, if I refresh this, you see that it jumped to 30, which is the plan that I have in my local database. Great. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with this being done. The index page is done. The school page is now done. That's the only button on that page, so I'm satisfied with that. And then we need to move on to the sign up page. I think, no, I didn't. I was going to do the sign up page offline is what I said in the last stream, and then I didn't actually do that. So that's why I put it here. There's also, part of this is going to be updating the plan model because there's some data that I foolishly left out of the plan that's needed, namely the price of the plan month to month. I can't believe I left that out, but that's what Django migrations are for, right? So let's take a second to stop, and there was not a lot here. We added a couple of lines to the test. We imported the plan, the product plan model, got it, moved some context around, and went ahead and updated our template. So I'm going to add that stuff to my staging area as well, so that now that chunk of work is done too. Okay, moving on to the last thing. Last thing for the evening. I don't even know that we're going to get as far. I try and keep this time box to roughly an hour because I think that's quite a bit of content anyway. But we'll see if we make it or not. So I have my sign up page, and it's the same sort of stuff as before. It's the same exact thing actually for the product plan above. So let's look at the sign up page just so you have context of what that looks like. Started up Honcho. Sometimes Honcho's a funny beast. Honcho is a Python clone of Foreman. So I use a proc file, and if you've done any Ruby development, you've probably encountered proc files in Foreman before, or if you've done Heroku is another tool that uses proc files. But Honcho is a Python implementation of that, so that I don't need to have a separate language runtime installed just to have a runner like this. But there are occasions where I like to just restart the whole thing because services can be weird and hot reloading is not always the most reliable thing. But let's look at, oops, that's the real sign up page. That's caught me on many occasions where I'm like looking at something very intently and it's like really scratching my head of why is this not showing up? Why is this not showing up? And then it finally dawns on me that I'm looking at the live site rather than localhost. Don't make that mistake, or if you do, make sure to look for it. So looking at the sign up page for localhost this time, we should see the sign up stuff that's there, and there are a few spots that use this data, but it's all in this sidebar thing. So this time we just need to change this number and this number, which is the same data. And here's the part where I got we're gonna have to actually do some more work, because I put the price in there, which is good. Like, people should know how much the service costs, but I didn't put it in the plan itself in the model. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So start with the test and go back to the accounts test views file. So we have this Stripe publishable key in context. I think again, like the last view over here, or in the other test file, what I want to do is just to change this to be not specific to Stripe publishable key, and just say this is going to be the thing for context in general. And I want to, essentially copy what I had before, so I shouldn't have closed it. And it's kind of the dirty little secret of doing some coding on some of these things. Are just your tests are your tests, and so the code is a little bit of duplication, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Some people would, but some of that repetition, well, I guess what's the alternative? That's probably the thing to discuss. Is the alternative is to try and make your test code very dry, and dry being don't repeat yourself. Ironic that I define it and then blah blah blah. Because there's a danger in having a test suite that has too much stuff extracted out of it and put in helper methods that are all over the test suite. First, you got to test the tests, which gets a little bit cyclical. Second, you can start to have unexpected side effects of, maybe you thought you're changing one helper in this way, but because there's higher degree of coupling between your tests now, that you might affect other tests in another way. So I get comfortable with just saying, let every test kind of stand on its own. And it's surprising how little I have to refactor this stuff, because you don't often make big, broad, sweeping changes in actual business code, at least from my professional experience. So we've got our signup view here. I've copied the product plan right there. It's not used yet, so let's go ahead and just swipe this assert line from over here. Anthony's probably wondering why I'm not using PyTest. But yeah, I'm using Django, so I'm sticking with Django. Although I do like PyTest, I use it at work. So we've got the thing that we want to appear in the context, and this time I did it in the right order, I believe. I didn't actually put the product plan into the context on the actual view yet, so this view should fail. There's actually with a key error, which is exactly what happened. So let's go and add this line right here to the context here. And I'm going to put it like this. Cool. So I've got black running, which is why it jumps like that when I save in my editor. So now the test should pass, and it does. Got that in the context. And we haven't changed the template yet, so it's still auto reloading back here when we're making changes. But because the template is not updated, it doesn't matter. It's, but we can. Nice part about the Django debug toolbar is they show you all the cool stuff that's in your context. So if you ever wanted confirmation and you don't want to go ahead and edit the template, they've got this handy little toggle context button. So you can see all of the templates that you're using. And in here, there it is, product plan. So that's good news. All right, time to use it. So let's go to the sign up template, which is this guy. Let's look for 14. I hard coded it, shame on me. And now we can say product plan trial days. That's what I named it. So there's one spot, and there's the other spot. So if we did it right, these numbers should change to 30. Refresh, they did. Great. Okay, can we add to a model and get all that done in the next 10 minutes or so? Let's try. So we've got the part of the stuff that I have defined in the product plan is now done, but our product plan model is not complete enough, so we need to add the extra bit. So let's look at the model to give you all some context of what the heck I'm talking about. So here's the, oh, that's not it. There it is. Here's the product plan. It contains very little information right now. It has the active Boolean, the plan ID, the trial days. Stripe plan ID is the data when I went into the Stripe dashboard and defined a plan, and they give you an ID, and that's what I'm storing in here. The trial days is also defined in the plan, but I didn't want to do a lookup to Stripe every time. I just wanted to display the trial days for something that's largely not going to change. So I wanted to record that here. And this active part is about that discussion I had way earlier about which one of these I'm actually showing, because there can be multiple product plans, or maybe I get to some future where I'm A/B testing this or doing different things, and I want some way to toggle between what's active. But this is the way I'm doing it for today. Okay, so what's missing is the what do I want to call it? I guess it's the price, and I'm gonna follow Stripe's mode because they deal with money, and whenever they deal with money, they deal with it in terms of cents. And the reason for that is because computers are terrible at math in a way, or at least they're terrible at floating point math. So if we were to do this with decimal or floating points, there'd be always some level of inaccuracy. So Stripe's model for dealing with this was to say, let's put it at the base unit of the monetary system that the US government uses, which is dollars and cents. And that way, we never have to deal with floating point math. It's just pure addition and subtraction of integer values. So I want to add a price field that will be, I have to give it well, I guess I don't have to. Maybe I do, because I have existing ones, so I want stuff to migrate properly. So I need to give it a default value, and I'm going to give it a default value of 0. So that's ultimately what I want. But what I really want to do is I have some tests for my models. And I've gotten some criticism from my teammates about having tests for models. Their argument is they're not adding a lot of value, and I get that to a point. I like having tests for my models because, for one, I like testing my factory methods, my factory functions, or no, their methods, sorry, and to prove that if I create an empty factory with nothing, that it won't blow up because it has all the necessary data that it has. And I also use this as kind of a way to say, here's the data that I care about. Here's an example of the data that goes into it. Like, for instance, trial days. You could deduce what trial days probably is. So maybe this isn't the best example. But if by having a test data, I can kind of give some representative viewpoint of what data I expect to go into the model. So that's why I'm a fan. And normally, if I wasn't streaming this, I would actually, I've got this field commented out right now. I would start from here, and I would say, test. Let's just substitute trial days for price, and prove that that it's going to break. So I have my services right now priced at $9.99 per month. So 999 is going to be my number. And if I do this, I get, predictably, that there is no price yet because I haven't defined it down here. Okay, so if I uncomment out the model line, come back to my test, it passes this time. Hooray. So that's going to allow us to have the data present in the model so that we can actually use it on the signup page. There's a bit that I don't know how to work with yet. I need to, let me show you. Better to show than to describe when this stuff is easy and very visual. I need to show it as an actual currency amount. So I need to have some basic stuff that will translate this from 999 cents to $9.99. It's probably this is where code can get, this is not hard code. Let me preface with that. It's a little bit of manipulation of a number that's there, some formatting and shifting some stuff around. There's an argument about what's the most efficient way to display this. And there is also an argument of, should I do this formatting? Like, where should this formatting be done? Is this something that makes sense to be a model method to like say, what's the display price? That's one path. It's probably one path that you would find advocates of if you read 2 Scoops of Django, which is like the Bible for doing Django development and best practices. They're very strong advocates of what's referred to as fat models, where you put a lot of your logic would live in your model code, and there's value in that. There's an argument for that. Another place to put it is actually in the view. Like, this is potentially the only place that needs to show the price for now, for the foreseeable future. So if that's the case, there's an argument to be said that the best place for it is in the view. And then there's another camp that would say, like, well, this is something that is purely a concern of a template, so maybe it should be a custom template tag. I tend to shy away from template tags because they're a little harder to test in isolation. They can get, especially if you don't keep them simple, they can get pretty gnarly in doing queries that you don't anticipate. Like, you definitely just shouldn't do queries in template tags. I've been bitten at companies that do that, and that's my rule of thumb. Don't do any heavy logic in a template tag. So where am I going to put this? That's the question. I might punt on it tonight. I think I might just say that's enough, and I'll come back to it, think on it, and decide a little bit more, and maybe we'll show off, have some time to, lots of DB writes. Oh geez, DB writes in templates. Ouch. I've seen a lot of queries in templates. I've not seen someone write a lot of stuff in templates. That's brutal. So don't do that, folks. Okay, so let's stop. We've reached a pretty good stopping point. So I think what I want to say is we've got our price, and I'm going to make a final migration that will actually add the new price, and we can look at that migration really quickly just to see what migrations look like if you're not familiar with them. And I need to run black on it anyway. It's gonna, or else my pre-commit hooks will complain, or just they would fix it for me, I guess. But here's what's going on. So we're adding a new field. It's an integer field. It's called price. Cool. Before I commit this, I guess I do want to run this against my local database just to confirm that it's, what I expect to happen. Okay, yeah, putting a default of 0. We can go confirm that by looking at the admin over login. Oh, TLS. Shameful. For super users, I hard-coded an admin link up at the top just so they can conveniently jump to it without having to go up here and mess with stuff. And we look at our product plans and look at the fake plan that I made. Dum-da-dum-da-dum. Okay, there it is. So real sort of data would have this 999 value, which we can use next time. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with where we've ended up today. Didn't quite finish the issue. That's okay. We don't always get things done in the time we want them to, but we made pretty good progress. So let's recap. I'm gonna spare you guys from spare you all. I don't want to assume that you're all men. From committing to Git later, but what did we do? We went back to our index page and we updated it so that it didn't use a straight get from Django. So it did a filter and a last, so it got out the last record so that I can't, while I'm messing with the admin, suddenly break the main index page of the website. So that was the good thing, first thing to do. And then we went into this school page where I had the kind of the teaser button of say sign up now, and we added the product plan there to that template and made that work. And then we worked on the sign up page and did very similar stuff. We added tests for all of this, which makes me feel good, gives me confidence that my code is going to be good. There are things I probably still need to do. Like one of the things that we could do is check MyPy. I haven't fully integrated this into like my pre-commit checks, but I do have a target, a makefile target to at least check it. So I didn't commit any type checking faux pas in this code tonight, which is good. So I think that that leaves us at a good spot. What's not done is the formatting of the currency stuff. I'm going to figure out where I want to put that, and maybe next week at the stream, what's my MyPy INI file look like? All right, take a quick peek. I don't think it was that involved. Okay, here it is. So I check all the untyped stuff. There is no untyped stuff because I disallow it, but I'm doing it anyway. Maybe I don't know if that's actually helpful anymore. I was using this when I was adding type checking to this code base because it didn't have it. But now that it's 100% at type check coverage, I don't know that I need it. I've never actually stopped to think about it. But I disallow untyped checks. And then any of my third-party stuff, I ignore it. Yeah, I followed suit with Zulip on adding type checks to my tests, and the thought process was if I'm adding the type checks to my test code, it means that my tests, I think it means that my tests are following the contract that my types actually lay out, I think. In practice, I haven't seen a lot of value out of it, and it's mean I've had to add arrow none to every test function or test method. So I might rip that out later. I might be with you there, Anthony. But then I just ignore third-party libraries with this kind of style. I'd like to find a better way to do this in the future of dealing with third-party stuff. So I'm not fully satisfied with this strategy of like every time I need to add a third party, I need to come in here and add another thing to ignore. I wish there was a better way to say, just pay attention to my stuff. Anyway, that's sort of how I feel about it. So that's a good stopping point for this evening. Appreciate the questions, Anthony. That's good feedback. So thank you. So what am I going to do from here? We're going to I'm going to put this recording up. I've been posting these on YouTube for people to review afterwards if they want to. So if you have people that are interested in Django and want to see an app that has more than just what the tutorial covers, you can point them to those YouTube videos. I will probably stream again next Wednesday. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but whatever the Wednesday after November the 28th is. And we will maybe finish off this stuff. I'll have thought about more of the display formatting so that we can actually finish this. And then we'll move on to the next chunk of functionality that my product manager, my wife, has put on my radar. It's an integration with a service called Prompt that will add some useful tools for college admissions counselors who want to be able to review college essay stuff that goes along with schools. So if you have any feedback about this stream, ways that I can improve, things that you didn't get or didn't like, let me know. I'm happy to kind of integrate that as best I can. And if you could, share it on Twitter. I want people to find this useful. I want it to have some sort of reach eventually. I don't mind doing it to indefinitely to small crowds because it has the side impact that I'm slowly chipping away at my own project. So there's that selfish aspect for me, but I really do value the teaching opportunity for people and showing off a little bit of what I know about Django. So I think with that, I'm going to call it a night. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.